Hello, and thank you for joining us for ClickData's Marketing and Analytics and Calculating Your ROI webinar. Today's webinar will be hosted by Carolyn Carroll and myself, Rob Wood. We will be recording this webinar for later consumption, as well as sharing with your peers and colleagues. We will keep this to 30 minutes. We're respectful of your time. The webinar will be available on our website. We will also be emailing it to everyone who's registered. If you have issues with the audio or the video, feel free to chat with us in the right-hand corner. You'll see a chat box. That's also available for questions. Our Director of Professional Services, Sri Nede, will be moderating the chat. He'll be answering questions throughout the chat, as well as posting some that might be of interest to the general population. A few words about ClickData. We are the world's first 100% cloud-based BI solution. We have our primary offices in Canada, the United States, and France. We also have satellite offices in Latin America, Australia, and Asia. We're managing over 1 million KPIs, 100,000 data sets, and we're publishing over 100 dashboards an hour. One of my favorite stats about ClickData is that 94% of the people who use ClickData would recommend it to a peer. And we've received 4 out of 5 stars from Capterra, G2 Crowd, etc. ClickData is 4 basic principles and steps on how we do what we do. We believe in the philosophy that the data is your data, and you should be able to connect to any data from any source, anywhere, and then prep that data in the data warehouse that is included with the ClickData subscription, along with data tools such as cleansing, blending, merging, etc. You're able to normalize and standardize your data, create a federated data warehouse, run that data however you choose to do so through the visualization engine and the business intelligence modules that we have, allowing you to create a data story and beautiful actionable insights. Most importantly, you're able to share that. There's no point in doing any of that unless you can easily and freely share that with your peers, customers, and colleagues. Today's agenda, we'll be going over how to combine sales data along with Google Ad metrics, how to connect Google AdWords and extract what you would like from that, and combine financial data as well as the sales data, making a beautiful, elegant dashboard that allows you to see everything you need to understand about your marketing spend, your ROI, your customer life cycle, as well as cost of acquisition. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Carolyn Carroll, and take it away, Carolyn.
Thanks for the introduction, Rob. Thank you everybody who has taken the time out of their day to attend this webinar. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen here. Just give me 2 seconds. Okay, so you guys should now be able to see the live dashboard for ad campaign, customer acquisition cost, and ROI. So in this webinar today, we will be going through some of the steps to build out this dashboard. So just to give you a brief introduction to the dashboard, in the top left-hand quadrant here, we have revenue information from an e-commerce site. In the top right-hand quadrant here, we have transactional information and transactional trends, which are utilized to calculate the customer lifetime value. Some of the interaction within this.
I apologize for interrupting. We do have a few people on chat that have said that they cannot see the dashboard. Would you mind refreshing that live link one time? I think the webinar
Sure.
may not be keeping up.
Okay.
All right, I think that's good.
Great. Thanks very much, Rob.
You can start over. Thank you.
Okay, so in the top left-hand quadrant here, we have our revenue, which is coming in from an e-commerce site. And then in the top right-hand quadrant, we have customer transaction information. So we look at the number of transactions, the value of those transactions, how often those transactions occur. By identifying that information, we can utilize it to calculate the customer lifetime value. And with ClickData's interactivity within the dashboard, we can adjust our expected customer lifetime value based upon the expected customer lifespan. As we can see in the bottom right, this is feeding into our ROI and net profit. In the bottom left-hand quadrant, these are the core Google Ads metrics. And then in the bottom right, we have more calculations which pull together our e-commerce data and our Google Ads data to calculate the customer acquisition cost and also the net profit and return on investment for the ad campaigns. So without further ado, I'm going to move ahead now to establishing the connection with Google Ads. So I'm going to share my next screen. It may take a minute to buffer. So I'll just take my time in the segue. And then from here, we're going to talk about establishing the Google Ads connection. So from the data section in Click Data, we can go to Connections and we can click Add New. From here, we can type in our filter and we can select the Google Ads connection. From here, it's very straightforward to set up the connection in Click Data. Simply authorize the connection, and this will request that you sign into your Google account. From here, you just simply click Allow, and then this will establish the connection within Click Data. Once the connection has been established, we can go to the data section and click Add New here. And from here, you just need to navigate to the previously established connection, Google Ads. And then from here, we need to extract the specific information. So in this particular use case, we're going to be looking solely at campaign performance. We can choose a start date. So let's go back to January 1st, for example. And from here, we can click Next. We could also choose the aggregated period if you wanted to look at it of a monthly basis or even yearly basis. That is available here also. From here, we'll click Next, and we need to define our dimensions, our attributes, and our metrics. So one of the dimensions that we will need is Ad Network Type 1. In our attributes, we will need campaign name. This is selected already. And then in our metrics, we will need clicks. We will need conversions, which is ticked already. We'll need cost, and we'll also need impressions. Once we have defined our dimensions, attributes, and metrics, we can click Next, and then give the dataset a name, and then the process will begin. We also have automated scheduling within Click Data. So if you wanted to refresh this information of a daily basis or an hourly basis, or even as frequently as up to every 1 minute, that can be facilitated in our data automation section. Once we have the data set loaded in, we can preview it here. We can now utilize this information in our dashboards. So from here, I'm going to go to a pre-made dashboard. And from here, we can see that we have the revenue information established already, and we also have the transactional information established already. So this is coming from, in this particular use case, an e-commerce site, but it doesn't really matter where the data source is coming from. As long as you have the data, it can be tied together with your Google Ads information to calculate this information. So from here, we're going to go ahead and introduce you to dashboard formulas. In dashboard formulas, we can reference other widgets within the dashboard to create calculations. So for this particular use case, I'm going to be introducing a number indicator from the left-hand side. I'm just going to drag and drop it in. And from here, I'm going to select Formula. In the formula bar here, I can reference any widget which is available in this dashboard. So specifically for customer lifetime value, I'm going to be looking for my customer value per year. I'm going to be multiplying that by the margin percentage. And to allow for interactivity in the dashboard, I also want to reference my slider. We do a quick check. We see that the formula is evaluating correctly, no errors, and we can do a quick formatting. So we can remove the icon, for example, and we could also format the text to be currency, and we can call that CLTV, customer lifetime value for short. So to briefly review the dashboard formula, we are referencing our margin value here. We're referencing our customer value per year here, and we're also referencing the expected customer lifespan. So from here, I can adjust the customer lifespan and the chart will update to reflect that value. From here, we're going to introduce some of the core Google Ads metrics. So I'm going to take a line chart from my list of widgets. I'm going to drag and drop it in. Excuse me. And from here, we're going to select data source. So we want to reference that Google Ads data that we just pulled in. And from here, we can see the various fields which are available for us to use in this chart. So I want to make a timeline chart. So I'm going to bring in date into my categories. So that gives us our horizontal axis of date. And I'm just going to look at impressions, for example. So this is a very simple way to create a time series chart. And we can also build in interactivity into this chart by referencing, for example, this drop-down list here. This drop-down list is in reference to the ad network type, which can be display ads, search network, or YouTube videos. To implement that filter, we simply go to sort and filter and base it upon the ad network type, and then we reference the input widget drop-down list ad network. So from here, we can see that our impressions will update as we select the different network types. From here, I'm going to jump a little bit ahead, and we're going to take a step to dashboard 3. And so from here, we can see that we've established some additional graphs here. We formatted them a little bit differently, but we're looking at the key KPIs for our Google Ads metrics. It's impressions, we've got our clicks, and we've got our conversions. We've also got campaign cost here, and we're going to be using that to calculate the customer acquisition cost. So in the ad campaign, certain viewers clicked on the ad, were brought to a web page, and from that web page, they signed up to be a lead for the e-commerce site. So that creates 213 leads at the very top of the sales funnel. From there, we want to estimate if we were to convert, let's say, 20% of those leads, that would result in 43 converted leads. So those 43 converted leads, they would essentially be paying customers. So what we want to do is we're going to calculate the acquisition cost for those customers. So we're going to take our campaign cost and we're going to divide it by our paying customers. So once again, it's quite similar to the calculation that we created previously. I'm going to bring in a number indicator again. Once again, base it on a formula. And we're going to reference the cost widget. And we're going to divide that by the converted leads. From here, we can once again see the interactivity available within Click Data by if we expected to see a lower lead conversion rate, then how that would affect our customer acquisition cost. If we went up higher, it would obviously reduce the customer acquisition costs. From here, we'd like to establish a column chart which would calculate the net profit on a customer by customer basis. So we're going to bring in a column chart. We're once again going to reference the ads dataset. And from here, we're going to add calculated columns. So the first widget I want to reference here is the customer acquisition cost. So I'm just going to update the reference for this number indicator. Rather than just having it as number indicator number 1, we're going to identify it as CAC for customer acquisition cost. Going to reference that in our calculation here. And because it is an outgoing expense, we're going to multiply it by -1, so it will be a negative value. We introduce that to our values here, and we just simply rename it as customer acquisition cost. Next up, we're going to look at our customer lifetime value. And we're going to introduce that to the chart also. And last but not least, we're going to subtract customer acquisition cost from customer lifetime value. In this case, I'm using a series value function, which will allow me to reference the columns in the chart itself. From there, we can do further formatting such as labels, etc. But let's move ahead to our return on investment. In the return on investment, the calculation for that is going to be the customer lifetime value, subtracting the customer acquisition cost, so our net profit here, divided by our customer acquisition costs. So once again, we're going to write a formula here. So it's going to be our CLTV minus our CAC divided by our CAC. So with some simple calculations and dashboard references, so widget references such as our margin, our value per year, customer acquisition costs, etc., we can see that we can calculate the return on investment quite easily here. And by utilizing the dashboard interactivity, which is built into Click Data, we can do various what-if scenarios. So we could say that if we're currently converting our leads at about 11%, if we were able to up that to say even 15%. How would that affect our marketing ROI for these particular campaigns? We could also focus on individual campaigns, such as our search network or display network, etc. From there, I'd like to hand you back to Rob.
Thanks, Ron. This was awesome. So basically, in under 30 minutes, you were able to create a single dashboard that talked about the revenue of your product and services, the customer lifetime value, and how to calculate that, your ad metrics and return on investments, as well as the conversion rates. This is pretty good stuff where no one else really can do that easily as we can, and we're more than happy to help with everybody. So we'll wait a minute to see if we have any questions from the gallery. But again, thank you, Karan. This is great. We're always excited when people understand the power of what they can do with click data. After all, it's your data. You might as well put it to work. With that, I'll open it up to Shri. Do we have any questions, Shri?
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Karan, for the webinar. That was really interesting. We do have a few questions. So I'm going to take up the first question we have. It's mainly related to, I'll try to rephrase this. While calculating the ad campaign cost and ROI, is Google AdWords the only source that the customers can use, or what are the different options if they are managing the ads in, say, Facebook ads or LinkedIn ads or Bing ads?
Sure. So in this particular use case, we were focused on Google Ads. However, these same metrics are applicable across the board. We facilitate connections with various different ad network data sources. So although this use case focused particularly on Google Ads, it is applicable across the board, whether it's Facebook ads or any other sort of ad network. It's completely applicable.
Great. So you're saying we have different native connectors and they could connect to
Exactly.
any of these connections and they can create a dashboard, not just based on Google Ads. Perfect. The second question we have, I think some of the attendees, they joined in late. So they wanted to see what's the end product, how the dashboard looks like. What are the different ways of sharing the dashboard once that is ready?
Sure. So I'm going to just take back sharing of my screen. Just give me 2 seconds there. So currently we're utilizing a live link URL here. So that means that your viewers you can share this link with your viewers and they can navigate to this dashboard and they can interact with the dashboard. So they can focus on a particular network type, or they can focus on adjusting the customer lifespan, etc. The live link itself can also be embedded into other web pages via iframe embedding. So if you have your own internal portal, this dashboard can be embedded within that. Beyond that, we can also send out, we can have a publication schedule, which would allow us to send out a copy of this dashboard as an image or a PowerPoint or a PDF. Unfortunately, the interactivity illustrated here would not be available in those email attachments, as it wouldn't be based upon ClickData's platform. However, if you want to provide that interactivity, you can simply send them this URL. They simply follow that URL and they'll be brought to this page.
Awesome. Thank you, Kiran, for letting us know. It definitely seems that the live link is the most ideal way of sharing the dashboard in such a scenario. The last question we have from a user is connecting to HubSpot. If someone is using HubSpot, what are the different kind of metrics they can pull in from HubSpot, and could we create a similar dashboard using HubSpot?
Yeah, of course. So once again, although this use case was referencing e-commerce via the WooCommerce connection, any data source that you have that provides revenue information, customer transactional information, it is applicable here. So yes, for HubSpot and various other data sources as well, you can utilize this use case for those data sources.
Awesome, thank you. With that, I'll hand over back to Rob. Rob, I'd like to address just a thank you, and if someone wants to access this webinar, how they can do it at the end.
Shri, thank you. Kiran, thank you again. You can certainly reach out to us via our website, clickdata.com. You can contact us at sales@ClickData or support@ClickData if you'd like something more technically answered. This webinar will be sent out to everyone. And again, thank you very much for your time. We're right at the 30-minute mark, and since there's no more questions, we'll go ahead and sign out. Again, thank you very much and have a great rest of your day.